The first time the neighbors saw the strange wooden door in the ground beside the small cabin, they laughed so hard that the sound echoed through the quiet valley. The door looked completely out of place, built into a mound of earth like the entrance to some forgotten tunnel. A narrow staircase disappeared underground beneath a heavy steel hatch, and beside it sat long stacks of neatly cut firewood. The man who built worked quietly day after day, digging deeper beneath his cabin, reinforcing the walls with stone and concrete, while curious neighbors watched from the dirt road. Some said he had lost his mind. Others joked that he was building a bunker for the end of the world. But months later, when the worst winter storm in decades buried the town under ice and snow, those same neighbors would stand outside his cabin in shock, watching smoke rise steadily from his chimney, while every other firewood pile in the valley had turned wet and useless. That was the moment they finally understood why he had built the underground shelter. Before we continue this emotional story, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel if you believe in silent heroes and second chances. Sometimes the people others laugh at are simply preparing for storms the rest of the world cannot yet see. The man who built the shelter was named Thomas Walker, a quiet Army veteran who had moved to the small mountain town of Silver Ridge, Colorado, after leaving military service. Thomas had spent nearly 10 years stationed in some of the harshest environments imaginable. During those years, he learned something most people never had to think about. Survival often depended on preparation long before danger arrived. When Thomas returned home, he did not want the noise of a big city or the crowds of suburban life. What he wanted was peace. He found it in Silver Ridge. The town sat high in the Rocky Mountains, surrounded by pine forests and steep hills where winter storms often arrived without warning. Thomas purchased a small piece of land at the edge of town, where an old wooden cabin stood near a frozen creek bed. The cabin was small and weathered, but it was strong enough to restore. For Thomas, it was perfect. At first, life in Silver Ridge was quiet and simple. Thomas repaired the cabin roof, replaced broken windows, and slowly rebuilt the structure into a comfortable home. The locals noticed him right away, because small towns always notice new faces. He was polite but reserved, attending church on Sundays and buying supplies from the same small general store everyone else used. Most people respected him, but everything changed when he began digging beside the cabin. It started with a shallow trench that grew deeper every day. Soon a pile of dirt formed beside the hole as Thomas continued digging with steady determination. Neighbors driving past slowed down to watch. Within weeks, the trench had become a deep rectangular pit. Thomas installed thick wooden beams, reinforced the walls with stone, and poured concrete to create a large underground room. Finally, he built a heavy insulated door on the surface with a staircase leading down below. That was when the laughter began. Some neighbors joked that Thomas must be expecting an invasion. Others said he was building a secret hiding place for treasure. A few people simply shook their heads, convinced the quiet veteran was preparing for disasters that would never come. But Thomas ignored the jokes. He had seen too much during his military years to underestimate the power of nature. After completing the underground shelter, he began filling it with carefully stacked firewood. Each piece was split evenly and stored on raised wooden racks inside the dry underground space. Above ground, he kept only a small pile beside the cabin door. To most people, storing wood underground seemed pointless. But Thomas understood something the others did not. High mountain winters were unpredictable. When storms arrived, snow could fall for days without stopping. Wind-driven ice often soaked outdoor wood piles, making them nearly impossible to burn. Inside the underground shelter, however, the temperature remained stable and dry all year. Thomas had built more than a bunker. He had built a perfect storage system. Autumn slowly turned into winter, and the mountains around Silver Ridge began to freeze beneath heavy snow. At first, the season followed the normal pattern everyone expected. Then one January night, the weather changed suddenly. A massive winter storm moved down from the north with brutal force. Temperatures dropped far below freezing, while powerful winds pushed thick snow across the valley. Within hours, the entire town was buried. Snowdrifts blocked roads, and ice coated rooftops and trees. Power lines collapsed under the weight of frozen snow, leaving the town without electricity. The storm continued for 3 long days. Families stayed inside their homes, burning through their firewood quickly to keep warm. But a problem soon appeared. Most of the outdoor wood piles had become soaked by wind-driven snow. Wet wood refused to burn properly. Smoke filled chimneys without producing enough heat, and homes across Silver Ridge began growing colder. Parents wrapped their children in blankets, while elderly residents struggled to stay warm. Then someone noticed something unusual. Smoke continued rising steadily from the chimney of Thomas Walker's cabin. Day after day, the fire inside his home burned strong and steady. Curious neighbors began walking through the deep snow toward his property. What they saw left them stunned. Thomas opened the underground hatch and carried armfuls of perfectly dry firewood up the stairs. The logs looked untouched by snow or moisture, as if they had been stored in a warm barn. But everyone knew the truth. They had watched him stack that wood underground months earlier. Inside the shelter, the firewood remained completely dry despite the freezing storm outside. Word spread quickly across the valley. Soon several families arrived at Thomas's cabin asking if he had extra wood to share. Without hesitation, Thomas opened the shelter and began handing out bundles of dry logs to anyone who needed them. For the next 2 days, he helped dozens of neighbors keep their homes warm. People who once laughed at the strange underground door now carried firewood away with quiet gratitude. The storm finally passed after nearly a week. Road crews cleared the snow, power returned, and life slowly returned to normal. But something had changed in Silver Ridge. The jokes stopped. The laughter disappeared. Instead, neighbors began greeting Thomas with genuine respect whenever they saw him in town. Before we reach the end of this powerful story, take a moment to comment the word prepare below if you believe wise people often see dangers long before everyone else does. Because sometimes the ideas that look strange today become the solutions everyone depends on tomorrow. And the quiet man digging beneath his cabin might simply be preparing to help others when the storm finally arrives.